So that is a bone of contention, to be or not to be. I think that will be the next question, or the question that's already been asked, and perhaps we'll get to see the answer much later this week, depending on when the House sits, considers the harmonized version from the gazetted version, and then we'll look to the Senate and then probably see what happens next. But at the moment, as you've seen or heard there, probably read on several other platforms, that people are not exactly taken by what they are reading. But so we've got someone to shed some light, probably not heat, on some of these matters, and we'll toss to Abuja now for that. Markwe?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Indeed, when the House or the National Assembly is still trying to, justify what it is that they have passed in the petroleum industry bill, it would seem that another controversy has begun to brew. Maybe not, or maybe there could be controversy from what you saw in that report there. We have with us Honorable Amos Gwamna Magaji, who is a member of the House Committee on Electoral Matters and also a member of the Joint Technical Committee of the House on Electoral Matters, with us this morning. Good morning, Honorable, and welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Good morning, thank you for having me.
Well, I'm sure that you have heard some of the controversies as we expect the passage of the electoral bill. First, it would seem that the electoral bill has been, I don't want to say dogged by controversy, but we did expect that the first quarter of this year, which was when was promised, the electoral bill or act would have been amended as promised. Now it's coming late, and it will seem that it's not without insinuations that this has been deliberate. And then now we're now beginning to hear that, what people were expecting will be passed in the bill to make it fair and to make the electoral process even smoother. It's not what is happening. Can you tell us what the situation is?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I know that the House Committee on Electoral Matter, with the support of our chairperson, Honorable Haicha Duku, we work tirelessly to ensure that the bill is presented to the House in the first quarter. We started this joint committee sitting early in January, and we were working, and we came out with a draft copy. And then it will interest you to know that in the joint technical committee, we had the Senate and the House of Reps. We had also civil society. We have also INEC. So it was tediously done and then gazetted and then to be presented to the House. So a lot of things came in, and we're about to present the bill now for consideration in the House. And then suddenly I was coming from my constituency on Sunday, and I began to receive several calls. That, what have you done? What is it? I said, I've not seen anything, but I know what we did. And then many of the things that are being passed on social media were completely not what we considered in the joint committee.
So are you concerned that maybe there have been changes along the way, or what precisely are your concerns right now?
Of course, I have to be concerned because Nigerians have been waiting for amendment of the Electoral Act. And then we have come to a point whereby, with all the effort put in place to give Nigerians what they deserve and what they desire, and then it seems a lot of controversy is coming here and there. I don't know it. I believe that what we have heard, or the document that is circulating in the social media, I want to believe that it is not the true position of what the bill is speaking, because I know that Nigerians are really yearning for credible election, and of course everybody, even players in the process, will desire to have a credible election. For example, where there are no credible elections, you will hardly have development. And that's the first stage. If Nigeria will be developed, we must have credible election. And I tell you the truth, the House that I represent is committed to ensure that the electoral bill is considered.
So, Honorable, I would like us to shed a little more light on some of the things that you have heard, and from where you stand, tell us what the true position of what you passed is. Because we also had a colleague of yours on this program who said, and who was quite afraid and was wondering why it was that it has taken this long for the electoral bill to be presented to the floor of the House, that as far as they know, as a joint committee, they have since finished their work and that this has been transmitted to the leadership of the House. Is that correct?
Very correct.
If it is correct, it means that the bill is no longer in your custody. Is that right?
Well, that's how the process it goes is like this. After the joint committee or the technical committee, the bill is presented to the entire committee. Then from the committee level, it goes to the General House, where it will be considered. So
tell us where it is right now.
Right now, it's at the process of, we had a meeting yesterday, the joint, the committee in the House, and then, of course, the meeting was very brief, and I believe maybe between now and tomorrow, we may have a committee sitting where we will have the gazetted copy before it is presented to the House. Then one will be sure that this is what is there. And but I know what we work on.
Okay, well, what I'm hoping that you'll be able to do is dispel the doubts in the minds of Nigerians. Even though I think that might be a bit difficult. I mean, I'm not in a position to say what will be difficult for you. You can say that yourself. But based on what you know, based on what you decided in the joint committee, is it true, for instance, that aspects of the bill that have to do with transmitting results to the center, that's INEC at the headquarters, for instance, is it true that those parts of the bill were removed or tampered with, or, not I don't want to say assented to, but, just tampered with by the joint committee?
Now, what that section, I think section 50, was highly debated during the technical section, because I remember when we were there, and then when we got to that section, we had to take a break and then came back to deal with that. And my position there was that Nigeria had made several huge investments in the electoral process from 2011, 2015. So much had been spent to ensure that we have credible election and we can conduct our election electronically and also transmit electronically. In fact, there are several examples now that will show you that the country is ripe for electronic voting and transmission of result. And that will reduce a lot of problems. It's worrisome that at this stage of our development that we have to close the entire nation anytime we're having election. It ought not to be so. And it will interest you to know that my own state, Kaduna State, had demonstrated that we can have electronic election and then transmission of result. And it was actually even tried in I think, Edo election.
So these are the arguments. So
this was the argument. And then we came and the INEC was there. And of course, INEC had not said they don't have the capacity to conduct election electronically or transmit result electronically. INEC let INEC come and say, okay, we don't have the capacity.
What did the committee decide?
We decided that, okay, at the committee level, at the technical committee level, it was back and forth. Then we now say, okay, INEC, what do you want now? You are the player. You are the one conducting the election. And you have done it, you have test run different elections, you have done it in several places. What are the challenges here and there? And then, of course, what it was agreed was that where reasonably practicable, INEC will conduct election electronically and transmit election electronically. But there are also areas where, like some remote areas in the country, where you may find it difficult to transmit a result electronically. But I know that the electronics we are using right now, even if the place does not have service, if it is like text messages that you send, once you leave the remote area and you come to areas where you have network, immediately it gets sent. And that is the only way we can ensure that all the violence we're experiencing in our polling unit and in the collation center will be completely taken off. And of course, Nigerians in diaspora are also yearning and eager to participate in our electoral processes. And electronic election voting and transmission of result will also help to solve many of these problems. Countries smaller than Nigeria have practiced it and it's working. And of course, even in my state, the election we have in August 14 will be done electronically. So I think if we really want to, I don't know why, but sincerely, I am yearning to see that we move from yesterday, we move from Stone Age election to what is obtained in this very stage of our development.
In other words, the committee agreed after much debate that this is the way to go, electronic voting, but you made provisions for where there will be no network. Is that
where in case there are difficulties. So we left it with INEC to decide where there are difficulties, this and this should be done. But we agreed that elections should be done electronically, and if not, we have made huge investment. And some of the things that INEC has even procured for election are some of the electronic devices. And some of them were even demonstrated.
Insinuations are rife that that is not what is currently in the Electoral Act as amended. That's the fear out there in the public. I'm sure you heard you heard the gentleman in the press conference there express the fear that many have now shared widely on WhatsApp and whatever platforms they are on social media, that this is now not what is going to be delivered in the Electoral Act.
You see, the truth about it is that we're there to represent the people. And we must be sensitive to the voice of the people. And I just read the communique issued by the Southern Governors Forum. And in their item 5, one of the things they actually stood for was this electronic. So if we have a section of the country representing about 17 states that came out to say they are supporting electronic voting and transmission of results, then that means the general public is in support of it. And of course, if anybody is not in support of electronic voting and transmission of results, then I believe is a very few section of the country. But the majority, I believe that that's what Nigeria is yearning for. And then it will interest you to know that we have the country has already made over 80% investment. So we are not even going to spend more in ensuring that it takes place. The investment has already been made in the past.
Let me flip this to my colleagues. I'm sure they have questions for you, gentlemen.
Well, Honorable Magaji, let's try to do this again. Forgive me. Let's run through the process that this Electoral Act Amendment Bill has gone through and where it is now from the inception. So if you could just help Nigerians understand the process that went into it, the first reading, the second, and all until we got to this point, so we can identify where the issue might be, because this is huge. You don't even need to go on social media alone. Even on pages of newspaper, you find these issues. So if you could just help Nigerians understand the process that this bill has gone through so far.
Okay, the first, you need to understand that when a bill comes, it goes through the first reading, and then the second reading, and then it goes to the public hearing. We receive a lot of memorandum from different parts of the country showing the concern and showing the interest of Nigerians in Electoral Act amendment. So many organizations submitted their memorandum, and then all were considered. We look at those memorandum, and then the committee sat down, technical committee sat down and considered the report. We had representative of the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. We had INEC. We had civil society. And then interested parties were all there in the technical committee. So it was huge. It was a strong team that was there. And then a lot of areas came, and where we actually had a lot of argument, during the technical session was the issue of electronic voting and transmission of result. And then, as I said earlier on, through that process, a lot, many people, we had, some were saying, okay, we should leave it to INEC to decide. Some are saying, no, let's spell it out black and white so that we know that we have it in our in the Electoral Act, that this is the way election should be conducted.
Okay, so in other words,
the result.
The committee finished its work and came up with a report. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so if indeed, some of the provisions we're seeing really happened, or if they were really changed, where could this have happened? At whose table could these changes have been made? Because it's quite hard to really figure out what's happening here. But if indeed, or if there's any possibility, where could this have happened?
To be sincere, I don't know. And then, I don't want to assume it is true that it has been changed. Because even if it has to be changed, then that means the whole technical committee need to sit again to consider the changes. Some of the things that have been assumed to have been smuggled into the electoral bill were strange. I've been receiving calls. I've been seeing some document in social media that are completely different from what I believe were considered. So let me assume these are not true. And then I'm waiting to see the gazetted copy that we really considered. I have my own copy in my office that was considered. So, and I know what is there. So
okay,
I want Nigerians to rest assured that...
from some of the ones circulating, so let's just read out this to you so that we'll show that we're on the same page on the controversial piece that is circulating out there. Just in case we have a wrong one as well, you never can tell. Because we see that there are 20 provisions that have been inserted in the one that is causing an uproar, saying, look, this is not the one that we've seen. So we see that Section 52, subsection 2 was drafted. And so we see here, they say that the old provision indicated that, quote, voting at an election and transmission of result under this bill shall be in accordance with the procedure determined by the commission, end of quote. The new provision says, quote, voting at an election under this bill shall be in accordance with the procedure determined by the commission, which may include electronic voting, provided, which is in caps, that the commission shall not transmit results of elections by electronic means. So is that the version that you saw that members are up in arms with?
That is completely erroneous. That is not what the committee worked on.
Yeah, but is this the one that you saw that is causing this uproar?
Well, somebody sent the same thing you're reading to me.
So you've seen this part. This is not what was worked on.
What you read now in... Yeah, what you read in section 52,
yeah.
I have received it in my WhatsApp. Somebody sent the same thing to me. I said, no, that is not what we considered.
Okay, so...
Because, you see, anybody in the technical committee will know that section because it was highly debated.
Go ahead.
You know, this is extremely important. This is extremely important because I'm looking at this story now. This is from the Senate President saying that the Electoral Act will be passed in 2 weeks, and that Nigerians who are not comfortable. I mean, let me quickly read this now. He says the National Assembly is embarking on the amendment of the Electoral Act probably by the next week or within the next 2 weeks. I mean, he said this at an event, Public Complaints Commission. We're inaugurating the Public Complaints Commission and 37 other commissioners. That's why he said this. He said the National Assembly is embarking on the amendment of the Electoral Act probably by the next week or within the next 2 weeks. It is very important that those who feel very strongly about any amendments that they think should be effected in the Electoral Act should contact interact or talk to their members of the House of Representatives as well as distinguished senators, I want to state categorically clear here that presiding officers are not the ones to determine what is coming or what is not. So it is very important that in the same fashion, in the same way the Public Complaints Commission is utilized properly by the general public. That's what he said. Now, I'm thinking to myself, if members of the public are not comfortable with the changes they're hearing have now been passed, or not passed now, but have been agreed upon by members of the Joint Committee, if the Joint Committee members know that that is not what they have passed, or that is not what they have agreed upon before it gets to the general body of the House, don't they have a duty to bring out the version that they have agreed upon, especially because this is now work that is finished, because it's past the public hearing stage. I mean, there is no way, that the public is going to be aware of it again. After it has gone past, the public has already said what it is that they are comfortable with. It has gone to the technical committee. Is there any way that people can know what is there?
Yes.
So that in case they are uncomfortable with some of the provisions, it can be dealt with before it finally goes to the floor for passage.
If you remember, I said earlier on that I don't want to insinuate. I want to see the gazetted copy laid. And once it is laid in the House, you can apply for CT, certified true copy. Mm-hmm. Anybody in the society, in the general public can apply for the certified true copy and get what is presented. But for now, it is still rumor. Let's wait and see what is presented to the House. When it is laid, you know that this is what is laid.
Wouldn't that be too late?
It won't be too late.
Because, I mean, even for members, some people will say...
Now, even when it's laid, that doesn't mean that it is agreed. We still have to debate about every clause in the General House. I don't know if you're getting me. Once the bill is laid in the House, it doesn't mean that it is final.
You know why this is important? See what is happening with the petroleum industry bill. Only yesterday we were informed by Senator Sekibo that the Joint Committee of both chambers had agreed on 5% for host communities, and that just before the Senate was about to pass its own version of the bill, that the two members of the executive were invited, the head of the NNPC and also the Minister of State for Petroleum were invited to brief the Senate. And shortly afterwards, they found out that they had to, reduce the amount from the originally agreed 5% that was agreed by the Joint Technical Committee of both the Senate and the House. The House passed its own 5%, but not the Senate. So wouldn't it be too late?
No,
when this is laid before the House for debate or for assent by members, if this is what members are already beginning, this is what the public is already beginning to see, and members are also beginning to see it, shouldn't they be demanding to see whether or not what is still with the leadership of the National Assembly is the correct version, or maybe somebody has tampered with it before it got to them or while it was with them?
Now, I want Nigerians to be calm over this, not to be agitated. Because one, the bill is not yet an act. And even if it's an act, there is no act that cannot be amended.
Which one of the bills, sorry?
The electoral bill.
Okay, the electoral. I need to be sure.
Like the electoral bill. Yeah. It's still a bill. It's under consideration. It has not yet been passed. And even if it is passed, for instance, that same section 50 is passed the way Chamberlain read it. That section can also be amended. So I want everybody to calm down and let's see how what unfolds within this. As you said, the Senate President said within 2 weeks. Let's see what unfolds. But consider if you look at the PIB, for example, we need to understand that every piece of legislation should be workable. Should be something that is agreed, that will carry. It may not be agreed by every Nigerian, but let it be that the majority are comfortable with every piece of legislation. Because the law is for man, not man for law. And once, even if it has been smuggled in, I don't know, I've not seen it. But let's say it has been smuggled in. With the uproar and then the concern that many Nigerians are expressing, I believe that the House will reconsider that. And of course, I wanted to understand that clause to clause will be considered. Clause to clause will be considered in the House.
Let me ask what your reaction will be when you get to the floor of the House, when this bill is going to be considered, and it turns out that what is presented before the House was not what the Joint Committee decided upon.
Well, sincerely, I will be disappointed. Because, you see, we need to get to a stage in our nation where...
Is that where it's going to end? Disappointment?
No. It won't end there. It won't end there. As I'm telling you right now, there are different... let's wait and see what happens in the House. But I'm assuring you that the majority in the players in the House, members of House of Rep, are yearning to see that the electoral process is amended. We want it. We, the players, also want it. I will be happy today if my people don't want me. Let me be voted out. The day they want me back, they will vote me in. And with that, we will see development in our nation. Because if you know that the people's voice matter, you wouldn't be elected and do just what you want to do. For example, for crying out loud, if our JAM and WAEC are doing electronic, if Jumia right now, you can sit in Abuja and buy something in Jumia, then I believe that the country is ripe, maybe many years back, to conduct electronic election and transmission of results. And that will take away many things off our polity. All this ballot box snatching, all the terrible things we see in our polling unit will be gone. And that is what we are working to achieve. And I want Nigerians to be rest assured, this present House, by the grace of God, will give them what they desire.
I think that the only time,
Very soon,
only time we'll be able to say whether or not the National Assembly will be delivering. I mean, you're speaking very, very comfortably for the House. You haven't said the National Assembly, interestingly. But you keep saying...
When I speak for the House, I represent.
That's what I'm saying.
I represent House of Rep.
It is amazing that you're only able to speak for the House. You're not able to say this National Assembly, will deliver on what Nigerians want.
I believe
it's
so.
remarkable.
Now, let me tell you something.
Okay.
Why I speak for House of Rep is that, we are 360.
Okay, Honorable, I'll let you justify why you're speaking for the House when we come back from this break. Please stay with me. Honorable Amos Guama Magaje is still here with us. He's a member of the House Committee on Electoral Matters and also a member of the Joint Technical Committee of the House, which worked on the amendment of the electoral bill. And we're talking about the controversy that has come up in the wake of, the expectation that the electoral bill is going to be amended soon by both the House and the Senate. So yes, they're going to be presenting it on the floor of both the House and the Senate very soon. And of course, the Senate President has been speaking, saying that if people are not comfortable with certain parts of the bill, that they had better raise those objections with their representatives in both the House and in the Senate. But the question is, what exactly has been worked on in this bill as amended? Because now we have members saying, no, what is circulating in social media are not the things that we agreed upon in the Joint Committee. So, Honorable here is saying we should wait. And it was saying that you're only able to speak categorically for the House.
Yeah, I spoke about the Joint Committee, which... in the Joint Committee, will interest you that we have men that have earned their respect in this country. The Joint Committee was chaired by His Excellency, the former governor of Kano State, Kabiru Gaya. And then we also had His Excellency, Malam Shekaro, former governor of Kano. We also had a seasoned legislator, the former Deputy Senate President, Ikwere Madu. He was part of the committee, and we also had another senator, then member of House of Reps. We are like 3 or 5 or so. So we work on it, and then I told you earlier, the civil society was also there, INEC was there, and then the representative of the Attorney General. So we work on that, and after working on that, and why I can say I'm speaking categorically about the House, as you said, because since we came back we have had committee meeting in the House of Reps. I don't know what Senate has, whether Senate has had their own meeting, but we have had several meetings, and nothing was changed from what we considered in the joint technical session.
So that's why you're only able to speak for the House?
Yeah, I can speak for the House.
Because you don't know what has happened in the Senate?
Yeah, I don't know, but let me assume nothing has changed in the Senate.
Okay, so if on the floor of the House, your expectations are not met, I mean, what you say, because you say you're able to speak categorically for the House, what is presented before you for passage is not the same thing. What would you do?
Well, you see, the House has our own, the House will present. I believe that what we work in the House will be what, I'm sure that this is what will be presented for consideration. But if there is any alteration, we can vote in the House, on the floor of the House. That's why I said everybody should be rest assured. It is not yet a piece of legislation. It is not yet final. And then even if, let's imagine there are things that were smuggled in or consideration that were altered, it is not too late to change them. With the uproar in the society, I believe that even if that was tempered, I say even if it were tempered, but I don't think it was, because I've not seen it. I can't speak for what I've not seen. I believe that it is not too late to revert back to what Nigerians are really yearning for. But in case we have a different view, the Senate and the House of Reps, we go into voting. And then, of course, you know, the senator and the House of Rep members each has voting right.
It's a problem, you know, the voting. Let me quickly let my colleague come in here, because I know he has questions for you, Kaidi.
Absolutely. I mean, still a lot of issues to resolve. Thanks, Mark. But Honorable, another area that is circulating, you may have seen that as well, is the section about election expenses for president or presidential election, governorship, Senate, and House of Reps. Have you seen that? Is that what is captured in the copy you have? Is it 15 billion for presidential, or 1 billion, or 5 billion? What exactly do you have in your own copy?
To be candid, I cannot remember the exact figure right now, but then I'm not bothered about that part, in as much as they didn't say if you don't have money, you won't run for election. They just put a cap on the expenses for election. So that means I shouldn't pass that level, but it doesn't mean that I should. I shouldn't spend below that. So I'm not worried about that. My only concern about the huge cost of election expenses is the not too young to run bill. The young Nigerians that really want to participate and are encouraged to go into vie for elective positions may not have that huge money to vie for election, which will probably discourage the young Nigerians or people that have vision, dreams, and have goal for this country and may not have the money to spend. But I don't want anybody to be discouraged because of the cap that is placed on election expenses. Okay, nobody said if you don't have money, you shouldn't run for eletion.
Understandably.
It only said that it shouldn't go above some certain amount.
Understandably, but I mean, if you have other candidates who can pull such weight? I mean, elections also is about the funds put in terms of advertorials and other resources. So if a candidate can pull such weight, imagine other candidates can. They probably don't stand as much chance. But I'd like you to listen to something the Minister of Information said, still regarding election expenses, because there are huge questions about the enforcement of what we already have in place. If, for example, House of Reps election, there's a cap, and you hear the spending of 150 million, which clearly is more than that. But please listen to what the minister said about a certain by-election that was conducted in 2018. And I'd like to get your response regarding enforcement.
I told them, I said in Yoruba, that they should explain to Nigerians and to all of you what happened to the balance of 70 million naira that Adilo kept, that he refused to give us during the by-election. But for the grace of God and friends, there will have been no election in November 2018. Because when we raised money and we gave them 2 days to election, their phones were shut off. We could not reach them again. I had to go to friends to raise an extra 150 naira to prosecute that election.
So, of course, the candidate did respond saying that, well, it's a minister that has questions to answer. But 150 million naira to prosecute a by-election for House of Reps position. And, I mean, it's clearly spelled out in the Electoral Act. So questions still remain about enforcement. Who's meant to monitor this? And what provisions are being made for that?
Yeah, that's why I said I'm not so bothered about how much is spent on election. The reason is that I am bothered about development. The reason why sometimes our elections are expensive is because we have neglected some key sector of the economy, education, health. And then if you are running for election, you discover that these are areas whereby money is being spent. And then if we develop our capacity, it will get to a point whereby if people are educated, if you like, come with a billion naira to contest for local government election. If people are exposed, and if people are empowered, they'll tell you, go with your money. This is the person we want. So the most important is that if you like cap local government election 1 billion, but let's ensure that the people have their voice. I've seen it in different areas and in different elections that the candidate with the highest or that spend more, it's not the candidate that won. And as you said rightly, who is going to monitor? How are you going to monitor the expenses? Is it just on election day or from the process of campaigning up to the day of election? So it is a little bit difficult to determine how much is spent on election because the amount spent on election, it is not visible for somebody to really see and say, this is the amount you have spent. You go to see delegate and then you visit a delegate. You see them in their houses. Who follows you to know how much you gave the person? But I want us to ensure that people have their voice. That money is not used to subvert. Money is not used to manipulate. Money is not used to change the will of the people. And we are getting there. And once we get there, nobody will tell Nigerians that money does not grant you victory in an election. So people need to develop to a point whereby many of the things that they ask us in, I would prefer today that every Nigeria has free education, every Nigeria has free health care. And then when you go to campaign, let's see what you will give people. Let's see what you will talk about. Let's see your policy. And that is what will reduce election expenses. Because I tell you, I'm a player. I know where many people spend money running for election. And when we fix all those areas, we will discover that our election will immediately crash. So the cap is placed. Is it from the time you started running for an election, the time you started expressing interest, visiting your constituency, visiting delegates, holding stakeholders meeting, or the money you give on the day of primary, or the money you use for logistics on the day of general election? Which one? So we need to understand, is it the money spent on the day of election or the money spent throughout the period from the inception to the last day of election. It is very difficult to determine.
So many areas to consider. I'm sure that there will still be many more opportunities to have further discussions on the Electoral Act, even as we expect its passage. We have to thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning, Honorable Amos Gwamna Magaji, Member House Committee on Electoral Matters, and also Member Joint Technical Committee of the House. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much
for coming on
Thank
Sunrise
you for
Daily.
having me.
Well, that will be it for this segment. We will come back and we'll be discussing other matters. Remember that the Southern governors met again in Lagos yesterday, and they had quite a lot to say in their communique. Please stay with us.